Human was sleeping with his tool out when I came into his room. The corridor lights dimmed as the visitor moved through the human station. The station floated at the edge of known space, far from trade lanes and patrol routes. It was meant for research, not war, and the silence inside it felt deep and calm. To the visitor, silence was never empty. Silence was full of meaning. The visitor was not human. They were an observer sent by a distant council to study emerging species. Humans had drawn attention not because of strength or size, but because of speed. In a very short time, they had crossed star systems, learned foreign physics, and survived mistakes that should have ended them. The council wanted to know why, so the observer came alone. The observer had studied human habits for many cycles. Humans worked long hours, spoke often, and rested deeply. Their sleep was strange. Most species rested in guarded spaces or with protective systems active. Humans did not always do this. They slept as if the universe could be trusted. That confused the observer. Following the station's internal map, the observer reached a private door. The symbol on it showed one human name. This human was not important by rank. He was a systems engineer, ordinary. That made him valuable. Ordinary humans showed true habits. The observer passed through the door without sound. The room inside was small. One bed, one desk, one screen on the wall, dim and quiet. The air was warm. The human lay on the bed, breathing slowly. His face was relaxed. No sign of fear, no sign of alertness. But the observer noticed something immediately. The human was sleeping with his tool out. It rested loosely in his right hand, partly against his chest. The observer froze, instincts reacting faster than thought. Tools were dangerous. Tools meant readiness. Tools meant threat. The observer scanned the device. It was not a weapon, at least not in the simple sense. The tool was small, shaped to fit the human hand. Its surface was smooth, worn slightly from use. Faint light pulsed inside it, slow and gentle like a heartbeat. It was inactive, yet not asleep. The observer felt a ripple of unease. No alarm sounded. The tool did not react to the observer's presence. It stayed quiet, loyal to the sleeping human. The observer ran deeper scans, careful not to wake the man. The results were confusing. The tool was many things at once. It could repair systems, access data, regulate power flow, and monitor the human's health. It could even communicate with the station itself. It was not built for harm. It was built for help. Still, the question remained, why sleep with it out? In the observer's culture, tools were stored. Tools were locked away. Only guards rested near active systems, and even then with caution. Trust was limited. Safety came from distance. Humans seemed to believe the opposite. The observer moved closer. The human did not stir. His grip on the tool was loose, not defensive. It looked less like holding a weapon and more like forgetting to put something down. The observer studied the human's face. Lines showed stress from long work cycles, but there was peace too. This was not a warrior resting after battle. This was a builder tired from fixing something that mattered. The observer accessed station logs. Earlier that cycle, a minor system fault had occurred. Power fluctuation. Nothing serious, but enough to wake a responsible engineer. The human had answered the alert, used his tool to correct the issue, and stayed awake longer than required to ensure stability. The logs showed he had fallen asleep shortly after returning to his room, with the tool still in his hand. Understanding began to form. The human had not kept the tool out for protection. He had simply been too tired to care. That realization unsettled the observer more than any threat display. This human had access to powerful technology and treated it like a common object, not with disrespect but with ease. As if power was normal, as if responsibility did not require fear. The observer adjusted position, studying the tool again. It responded softly, syncing to the human's pulse. The observer realized something important. The tool trusted the human. It required no commands. No constant input. It worked in partnership, waiting patiently, even while its user slept. It would not activate without reason. It would not panic. This was not just technology. This was philosophy built into metal and light. The observer considered waking the human. Many reports were written after interviews and tests, but something stopped them. This moment, this quiet, unguarded truth, felt more honest than any conversation. The observer thought of their own species. They slept behind shields. They rested under layers of protection. Their tools were separate, controlled, distant. Power was always feared, always contained. Humans slept holding it, not tightly, not proudly, casually. The observer moved to the desk. On it lay scattered notes, tools, and half-finished repairs. The human lived among his work. There was no clear line between rest and duty. Everything blended together. That too was dangerous, the observer thought, or maybe it was strength. The observer recorded data silently: heart rate, tool response patterns, environmental trust levels, emotional calm. Everything pointed to the same truth. Humans did not see the universe as something waiting to hurt them. They saw it as something to fix. The human shifted in his sleep. The observer paused, but the man only turned slightly, the tool sliding a little in his hand. The light dimmed further, adapting, staying out of the way. The observer felt something unfamiliar: respect. This was not arrogance. It was confidence earned through effort and failure. Humans had broken things, fixed them, broken them again, and learned without giving up. They did not hide from their mistakes. They slept beside them. The observer stepped back toward the door. This single human had answered more questions than 1,000 battle simulations ever could. Humanity was not powerful because it was aggressive. Humanity was powerful because it was comfortable with responsibility, even while asleep. Before leaving, the observer looked once more at the human, so small, so fragile, and yet trusted by his tools, his station, and his species to hold things together. The door closed silently. The human continued sleeping, unaware that his simple habit had already begun to change how the galaxy would see his kind. The observer did not leave the station right away. They moved through the corridors again, slower this time, thinking deeply. What they had seen in the quiet room stayed in their mind. One human, one tool, one moment of sleep. It should have meant nothing. Yet it felt like the key to something large and dangerous in a very calm way. The observer reached a hidden access point and paused. From here they could leave the station unseen, but instead of leaving they opened a secure channel to their people. The report began with facts: human design, human behavior, human technology, but the observer struggled to keep the words cold and distant. Every sentence felt heavy. Humans rest without fear, the observer recorded. They keep powerful tools close, not for defense but from habit and trust. The observer hesitated, then continued. The tools are not dominant. They do not command, they assist. They wait. The report was saved but not sent. The observer needed more proof. Returning silently, the observer watched the station systems. Most species built systems that guarded against their own mistakes. Humans built systems that assumed mistakes would happen and planned for recovery. Nothing screamed danger. Everything whispered patience. Then something unexpected happened. In the private room, the human's tool changed state. Not loudly, not sharply, just a small shift in energy flow. The observer noticed it through passive scans. The tool was waking, not fully active but aware. The human still slept. The observer focused all attention on the device. The tool extended a low-level diagnostic pulse. It scanned the room, the air, the temperature. It noted the presence of the observer but not as a threat. Instead, it labeled the observer as unknown. Then it did something strange. It adjusted the room's environmental controls. The temperature shifted slightly, optimizing comfort. The lighting dimmed further. A faint sound barrier activated to block distant station noise. All of this was done without waking the human. The observer felt a chill. The tool was protecting the human's rest, not by force, by care. This behavior was not programmed in a simple way. It showed judgment, context, understanding. The tool did not alert security. It did not wake its owner. It chose calm over action. The observer realized the tool trusted the human enough to act on his behalf. In many civilizations, such behavior was forbidden. Tools that made decisions were dangerous. They removed control. They created risk. Humans had allowed it anyway. The observer recorded everything. The tool briefly pulsed again, this time monitoring the human's breathing. The human turned slightly, murmuring softly, still asleep. The tool responded by adjusting support beneath him, easing pressure. It was not a machine. It was a companion. The observer felt a growing sense of unease, mixed with something close to admiration. Humans had created tools that cared, then trusted those tools enough to sleep beside them. That level of trust could build wonders, or end stars. The observer moved back, careful not to interfere. They waited. Hours passed. The human finally woke. He blinked slowly, confused at first. He looked down at his hand and saw the tool. A small frown crossed his face. "Oh," he said quietly. That was all. No fear, no surprise. No rush. He simply shifted upright, stretched, and placed the tool on the desk. The tool dimmed further content. The observer watched closely. The human checked the wall display. System status, stable, no alerts. He nodded, satisfied. Then he stood and prepared for the day, unaware of being watched. This moment was important. The human did not thank the tool. He did not praise it. He did not question it. Trust was not something he thought about. It was simply there. The observer finally left the room and moved to a communication node. This time the report was sent. The council responded quickly. They were confused. "Clarify threat level," one reply asked. The observer considered the question carefully. "Threat level is high," the observer answered, "but not immediate. Humans do not seek harm, they seek solutions. This makes them unpredictable." Another message followed. "Are humans aware of their danger?" The observer paused before replying. "No," they sent. "They are aware of their responsibility." That answer caused long silence. While waiting, the observer continued to observe. Humans across the station worked together quietly. They shared tools freely. They corrected errors without blame. They trusted systems and each other equally. No rituals, no fear displays, no constant security posture. Humans behaved as if failure was expected and manageable. This was not weakness. This was resilience. Later, the observer noticed something else. The human engineer returned to his room after a long work cycle. He picked up the tool, checked a few readings, and sighed. "Tomorrow," he said to himself. He set the tool down and lay on the bed. Again he slept. Again the tool stayed close. The observer received another council message. "Recommendation," it asked. The observer knew this was the most important moment. Entire policies could change based on these words. They replied carefully. "Do not confront humans with force. Do not attempt dominance. Observe and learn. Any species that sleeps peacefully beside its own power should be approached with respect." A final message arrived. "Are they ready for contact?" The observer looked once more at the sleeping human. Ready was the wrong word. "They are already acting," the observer sent. "Whether we contact them or not." The channel closed. The observer prepared to leave the station at last, but before departing they looked back one final time, not at weapons, not at defenses, at a sleeping human. At a tool that waited quietly. The observer understood now. Humanity's strength was not in what they could destroy, but in what they trusted themselves to build. And that made them far more dangerous than any hostile empire, not because they would attack, but because they would endure. The observer had left the human station, but the human station did not leave the observer's thoughts. Moving through deep space, the observer's vessel stayed dark and silent. No lights, no signals. Stealth was easy now. The hard part was thinking. The report had been sent, the council had read it, and now the galaxy was changing, slowly and quietly. The council chamber was far away, but the observer could imagine it clearly. Many minds, many fears, many old rules built from long histories of loss. Most advanced species had learned the same lesson. Power must be controlled tightly, or it would destroy its owner. Humans did not seem to believe this. That belief alone made them different. The observer received a request for live discussion. The council wanted clarity, not data. They wanted intent. The observer connected. Images formed in the mind space, shapes and colors that represented the council members. Voices spoke without sound. "You describe humans as calm," one council voice said. "Yet you call them dangerous." "Yes," the observer replied, "because they do not fear what they create," another voice followed. "All creators fear their creations. It is natural." "Not humans," the observer answered. "They expect failure, they plan for it, they sleep beside it." The council paused. Silence filled the link. This silence was not calm like the human station. It was heavy. "Could they lose control?" a voice asked. "Yes," the observer said honestly, "but they will not freeze when it happens." That answer disturbed the council more than any warning of weapons. While the council debated, the observer returned attention to human activity across nearby systems. Humans were spreading, not fast, not carefully, but steadily. Research outposts, trade stations, listening posts, always small, always adaptable, and always filled with tools that thought, adjusted, and waited. Humans did not dominate their tools, they cooperated with them. The observer watched a different station now. Another ordinary place, another ordinary human crew. A system fault appeared, minor but unexpected. The station adjusted. Humans responded calmly. Tools shared information. No panic, no blame, the problem was fixed. The observer noticed something important. No one gave orders, everyone acted. That pattern repeated again and again. Humans worked like living systems, not chains of command. This made them flexible, hard to predict, hard to stop. The council sent another message. "We must decide how to classify them," it said. "Emerging, neutral, potential threat." The observer thought carefully. Classification meant rules. Rules meant assumptions, and assumptions failed with humans. "Do not classify them," the observer replied. This answer caused unrest. "All species must be classified," the council insisted. "Then classify them as unavoidable," the observer said. That word echoed. Unavoidable. Humans were not aggressive explorers. They did not seek conquest, but they did not ask permission either. They fixed problems in front of them. If the galaxy had problems, humans would notice eventually, and they would try to fix them. The observer remembered the sleeping human engineer, the way he had trusted his tool without thinking. That same trust extended outward, to stations, to systems, to the future. Humans trusted that tomorrow could be handled. That belief made them powerful. The council debated long after the observer ended the connection. They feared humans not for what they had done, but for what they might do without meaning harm. A careless kindness could break old balances. A simple solution could undo ancient power structures. Meanwhile, humans continued living. On the original station, the engineer woke and went to work again. He carried his tool openly. He shared it freely. Other humans borrowed it without ceremony. The tool adapted, learned, and returned. No one treated it as special. That was the most frightening part. The observer watched as a small trade issue arose between humans and a nearby non-human outpost. A misunderstanding, a systems mismatch. Tension could have grown. Instead, a human technician arrived with a simple translator tool. He listened more than he spoke. He adjusted his own systems rather than forcing change. The problem disappeared. No reward, no announcement, just resolution. The observer understood then that humans were already influencing the galaxy, not through power but through example. Other species noticed. Some copied human designs, some adopted human methods. Trust spread quietly. The council sent one final request to the observer. If forced, they asked, could humans defend themselves? The observer did not answer immediately. Defense was the wrong frame. Yes, the observer said at last, but they would not think of it as defense. They would think of it as problem-solving. That answer ended the discussion. The observer powered down the link and drifted in silence. Their mission was almost over. Observation had become understanding. Understanding had become concern, not fear. Concern. Humans were children in age but elders in attitude. They did not fear their tools, their systems, or their mistakes. They expected tomorrow to require effort and believed they could meet it. The observer realized the truth. The galaxy was not ready for humans, but humans were ready for the galaxy, not because they wanted it, but because they would respond when needed. The observer prepared a final private note, not for the council but for history. Humans do not rest because they feel safe, the observer recorded. They rest because they trust themselves to wake and act. That trust was their greatest strength. As the observer's vessel turned away, human stations continued to glow softly in the dark. Small lights, quiet work, sleeping engineers with tools left on desks in hands or nearby. The galaxy moved on, unaware that its future was already sharing a bed with humanity's calm confidence. And humanity slept peacefully, ready for whatever came next. The galaxy did not announce itself to humanity with noise or force. It arrived quietly. A signal appeared in human space, one ordinary cycle. No alarm screamed, no weapons activated. The signal was simple, slow, and patient. It did not demand attention. It waited. Human systems noticed it and flagged it as unknown. Engineers looked at it between tasks. Scientists studied it during meals. No one panicked. The signal did not behave like danger. It behaved like a question. At the edge of the human research station, the same one watched long ago, the systems engineer sat at his desk. He held his tool in one hand, turning it slowly as data scrolled across the screen. "Looks like someone saying hello," he said to no one in particular. The tool hummed softly, analyzing, adapting, learning. Human command was informed, not with urgency, with curiosity. The observer watched from far away. They had known this moment would come. The council had debated too long, waited too carefully. Humanity had reached a point where silence no longer made sense. The galaxy could not keep watching from shadows, so the galaxy knocked, softly. Humans answered the same way they answered broken systems and strange errors. They listened. A reply was sent. Simple, clear, open, no threats, no demands, just a greeting and an offer to communicate. The observer felt something tighten inside them. The council waited for fear. It did not come. The signal changed, slowly forming patterns that human tools could translate. Concepts passed between minds, not words at first but ideas, curiosity, caution, respect. The observer realized the council had made a mistake. They thought contact would test humanity. In truth, it tested the galaxy. Humans did not rush forward. They did not pull back. They adjusted. They built translators. They improved understanding. They allowed their tools to learn, but they watched carefully. Responsibility came before excitement. The systems engineer slept through part of the process. He had worked long hours helping stabilize communication arrays. When his shift ended, he returned to his room, placed his tool on the desk, and lay down. He fell asleep quickly. The tool stayed active, monitoring signals, filtering noise, keeping systems balanced. It did not wake him. It did not need to. The observer noticed this and felt a strange calm. This was it. This was the truth the council needed to see. The first shared message was exchanged soon after, not between leaders, between technicians, engineers, observers. The observer finally stepped out of hiding. They appeared not in a grand hall but in a simple meeting room. Humans noticed, startled only for a moment. No one reached for anything. No alarm sounded. The systems engineer was there, rubbing his eyes, tool in hand. "You must be the neighbor," he said, tired but polite. The observer inclined their form slightly. "Yes," they replied. "I have been watching for some time." The human nodded. "Figures," he said. "You want coffee." The observer did not understand the word, but they understood the meaning. "Welcome." The conversation was slow and careful. Humans asked questions, but not invasive ones. They listened closely. They accepted answers without judgment. When something was unclear, they adjusted their tools, not their tone. The observer explained the council's fear. The long history of civilizations that destroyed themselves through misuse of power. The reason for secrecy. The human listened quietly. "That makes sense," he said at last. "But hiding didn't fix that for you, did it?" The observer did not answer. They did not need to. Humans did not claim superiority. They did not offer salvation. They simply explained how they lived. "We mess up," the human said. "A lot. That's why we build tools that help us notice and fix things. And we keep them close because problems don't wait." The observer thought of the sleeping room, the tool in the human's hand, the calm trust. The council watched the exchange through the observer's link. They expected tension. They saw cooperation. The observer delivered their final message to the council. "Humans are not safe," they said, "but they are stable. They do not seek control, they seek continuity." "What if they change?" the council asked. "They will," the observer answered, "and they will adapt again." The council fell silent. In the following cycles, contact became normal, not loud, not dramatic, shared research, shared mistakes, shared fixes. Humans did not spread ideology. They spread tools and methods. Other species learned to trust systems that corrected instead of punished, to rest without fear. Slowly, quietly, the galaxy became less tense. The system's engineer never knew the full weight of his actions. He continued his work. He slept when tired, sometimes with his tool on the desk, sometimes in his hand. Once the observer asked him about it. "Why do you sleep like that?" they asked. The human shrugged. "If something goes wrong," he said, "we'll wake up and deal with it." That answer was recorded, not as strategy, as philosophy. The observer's mission ended, not with a warning, with acceptance. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy. The galaxy learned to breathe easier around humanity. And somewhere in the quiet dark, a human slept peacefully, his tool nearby, while the future adjusted itself around that simple, powerful trust.